Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we'll talk about transport of gases. In the previous video, we learnt about exchange of gases mainly at the two sides, that is at the alveolar level and at the tissue level. So when we inhale, air enters into the lungs, specifically it enters the alveoli, and at the alveolar site, there is an exchange of gases. So oxygen from the alveoli entered into the blood, and this oxygen need to be transported into each and every cells of the body, where each and every cell utilizes this oxygen for the different metabolic reaction. As a result of metabolic reaction, carbon dioxide is produced as a metabolic waste, and this metabolic waste, that is carbon dioxide, need to be transported back into the alveoli because this waste need to be thrown out of the body. But how exactly this transport of oxygen from the alveoli to tissue and transport of carbon dioxide from the tissue to alveoli takes place? We'll learn about that concept in this video. Anyhow, by now you got that transport of oxygen and the carbon dioxide takes place through blood, or blood acts as a medium for the transport of oxygen and the carbon dioxide. We'll learn how exactly the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place by one. First, we'll talk about transport of oxygen. Transport of oxygen takes place mainly by two ways. That is, 97% of the oxygen is transported via RBC and 3% of the oxygen is transported via plasma. So, maximum or large quantity of the oxygen, that is 97% of the oxygen, is transported via RBC by chemically combining with the hemoglobin. What do you mean by hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is a red colored iron containing pigment, or it's a colored protein that is present in the RBC, and RBC will be having 250 to 270 millions of hemoglobin. So each RBC will be having 250 to 270 millions of hemoglobin. Each of this hemoglobin have 4 iron atom, and each iron atom has the ability to combine with a one molecule of oxygen. So RBC will be having 250 to 270 millions of hemoglobin. Each hemoglobin will be having 4 iron atom, and each iron atom will combine with one oxygen molecule. So each hemoglobin can combine with maximum of 4 oxygen molecule, and this combining of the oxygen with the hemoglobin to form a compound known as oxyhemoglobin. So oxygen combines with the hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin, and that process is known as oxygenation process. So formation of oxyhemoglobin is purely depend on partial pressure of the oxygen. So it depends on the concentration or partial pressure of the oxygen. So partial pressure of the oxygen is one of the factor which determines the formation of oxyhemoglobin. Apart from that, there are other factors which determines the formation of oxyhemoglobin, which includes partial pressure of carbon dioxide, temperature, and the hydrogen ion concentration. So formation of oxyhemoglobin, or formation of a percentage saturation of the hemoglobin with the oxygen, is depends on mainly 4 factors, that is partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, and the temperature. So if you plot a graph of percentage saturation of the hemoglobin with the oxygen against the partial pressure of oxygen, you will get a sigmoid curve, and this graph is known as oxygen dissociation curve. So oxygen dissociation curve talks about the percentage saturation of the hemoglobin with oxygen against the partial pressure of oxygen, and this curve, that is oxygen dissociation curve, is used to learn the effect of the factors like partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, and the temperature in the formation of oxyhemoglobin. So that is about the oxygen dissociation curve. So how 97% of the oxygen is transported? By chemically combining with the hemoglobin. So oxygen chemically combined with the hemoglobin to form a oxyhemoglobin, and the factor involves partial pressure of oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, and the temperature. So if we talk about the alveolar level, at the alveoli, the partial pressure of oxygen is high. So there is a concentration of oxygen, high concentration of oxygen, or partial pressure of oxygen is high at the alveolar site, whereas PCO2, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide, is low, hydrogen ion concentration is low, and temperature is also low. So all these factors are favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. So oxyhemoglobin is formed, that is combining of hemoglobin with the oxygen is formed at the alveolar site with this factor. All these factors are favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin at the alveolar site. But this oxyhemoglobin is not a stable product. So it is an unstable product, and this oxyhemoglobin will dissociate at the tissue level, or oxygen will be lived or cleaved from this oxyhemoglobin at the tissue level. Again, it depends on the factor. So at the tissue level, what happens? The PCO2 is high, that is concentration of carbon dioxide is high at the tissue level, because carbon dioxide is formed as a metabolic waste at the tissue level. So PCO2, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide, is high at the tissue level. Hydrogen ion concentration is high at the tissue level, and the temperature is also high at the tissue level, whereas partial pressure of oxygen is low. So oxygen concentration is very low at the tissue level, and all these factors are favorable for the dissociation of the oxyhemoglobin. So oxygen is cleaved from the hemoglobin, and oxygen will be released into the tissue level at the tissue. So the oxygen is released into tissue at the tissue level, and all the factors are favorable for the dissociation of the oxyhemoglobin at the tissue level, whereas all the factors are favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin at the alveolar level. So that is how exactly association and dissociation of the oxyhemoglobin takes place at the alveolar level and at the tissue level, mainly based on these four factors. So that is how exactly 97% of the oxygen is carried via RBC, whereas other 3% of the oxygen is carried via plasma in the dissolved form. So oxygen will be dissolved in the plasma of the blood, and that is how only little quantity, that is 3% of the oxygen, is carried through plasma. 100 ml of this blood have 5 ml of oxygen. So in both the way, oxygen will be transported from the alveoli to tissue level via blood, and 100 ml of the blood carries only 5 ml of oxygen to the tissue level. So that is how exactly transport of oxygen takes place via blood. Now we'll talk about transport of carbon dioxide. If we talk about the transport of carbon dioxide, it takes place mainly by three ways. That is 20 to 25% of the carbon dioxide is transported via RBC, 70% of the carbon dioxide is transported as a bicarbonate, and 7% of the carbon dioxide is transported in the dissolved form in the plasma. These are the three ways of transport of carbon dioxide, and we'll discuss all three ways one by one. First, we'll talk about via RBC. So 20 to 25% of the carbon dioxide is transported via RBC by chemically combining with the RBC, similar to that of oxygen. So till now we studied about the formation of oxyhemoglobin, that is chemically combining of oxygen with the hemoglobin. Similarly here, carbon dioxide chemically combined with the hemoglobin of the RBC to form carbaminohemoglobin. So carbon dioxide chemically combined with the hemoglobin of the RBC to form a carbaminohemoglobin. So this formation of carbaminohemoglobin also depends on the factors, that is two factors, that is partial pressure of oxygen and partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So formation of carbaminohemoglobin takes place when there is a high partial pressure of carbon dioxide and low partial pressure of oxygen, and that condition exists at the tissue level, isn't it? At the tissue level there is a high concentration of carbon dioxide, that is high partial pressure of carbon dioxide and low partial pressure of oxygen. So at the tissue level, when there is a high partial pressure of carbon dioxide and low partial pressure of oxygen, there is a formation of carbaminohemoglobin. So 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide chemically combined with the hemoglobin of the RBC to form a carbaminohemoglobin at the tissue level, where there is a high partial pressure of carbon dioxide and low partial pressure of oxygen. Later it will be transported, and at the tissue level where there is a low partial pressure of carbon dioxide and high partial pressure of oxygen, this carbaminohemoglobin will dissociate. So carbon dioxide will be released, or carbon dioxide dissociate from the carbaminohemoglobin and it will be released into the alveoli. So that is how exactly dissociation and association of carbaminohemoglobin takes place at the tissue level and at the alveoli level, based on the two factors, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide and partial pressure of oxygen. So that is how exactly 20 to 25% of the carbon dioxide is transported via RBC. Apart from that, there are two more ways of transport of carbon dioxide, that is 70% of the carbon dioxide is transported as a bicarbonate and 7% is transported through the plasma. So here 70% of the carbon dioxide is transported as a bicarbonate by diffusing into the RBC, whereas here 7% of the carbon dioxide will be dissolved into the plasma and it will be transported. Anyhow, in both the cases, the mechanism of transport is same. So in the first case, the 70% of the carbon dioxide will diffuse into the RBC, and in the RBC as well as in the plasma, it has an enzyme known as carbonic anhydrase. So RBC will be having large quantity of the carbonic anhydrase, whereas plasma will be having very little amount of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. Anyhow, in both RBC and the plasma, it has an enzyme known as carbonic anhydrase. So when 70% of the carbon dioxide diffuse into the RBC, this carbon dioxide combines with the water which is present in the corpuscles, that is present in the RBC, and in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, it forms a carbonic acid. Similarly, in this case, 7% of the carbon dioxide, when it dissolves in the plasma, it chemically combines with the water which is present in the plasma, and in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, it gives rise to carbonic acid. But this carbonic acid is an unstable product, so immediately it will ionize to form bicarbonate and hydrogen ion. So what happens here? 70%, here 7% of the carbon dioxide chemically combines with the water that is present in the RBC, and here water present in the plasma in the presence of carbonic anhydrase to form carbonic acid. This carbonic acid soon ionizes to form bicarbonate and hydrogen ion. So this reaction is a reversible reaction, means it takes place in the reversible manner also. So bicarbonate ion combines with the hydrogen ion and it gives rise to carbon dioxide and water. So at the tissue level, when there is a high partial pressure of carbon dioxide combines with the water to form a bicarbonate. Whereas at the alveolar site, when there is a low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, this bicarbonate ion combines with the hydrogen to form carbon dioxide and water. So at the tissue level, what happens? There is a high concentration of carbon dioxide or high PCO2. So during then, carbon dioxide combines with the water to form a bicarbonate, and in the bicarbonate form itself, it will be carried through the blood into the alveoli. So at the alveoli site, there is a low PCO2 level, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low. So because of that, this bicarbonate combines with the hydrogen ion to form carbon dioxide and water at the alveoli, and this carbon dioxide is released out of the body. So that is how exactly transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place from the alveoli into tissue and from the tissue to alveoli. I hope this video is useful. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.